Hi, my name is Ryan Saylor, and I had a case study of a 10th grade ELL student. My student's name is Michelle. Well, we'll call her Michelle. Michelle is in 10th grade, and she is from a city just outside of Mexico City. Uh, she told me to just say that she's from Mexico City. She's that close. She's been learning English for 3 years here in the United States, and she understood some English before she came to the United States. Had like a rudimentary course in it. She was learning. She knew her family was going to move to the States, so she started learning a little bit down there, but nothing formal. Uh, she's a polite girl. She's well behaved in class. She's always willing to work, raises her hand. She listens to her teacher. She's ready and willing to learn. Um, she does like to hang out with school activities like the basketball games. She has her friends. A lot of them are ELL students. They all share a lot of the same classes together. So she does like being with them and coming to school functions. She attends class regularly. Her teacher said she very hardly ever misses a day of school, which is good for her. And her teacher said that she's coming along just great. A lot of it is attendance, that she shows up every day. Uh, After doing WIDA and the observations, I had put her at intermediate, and so did her teacher, said that she's a low, high intermediate learner. WIDA has her at level 3, like developing. And this was just from, through a classroom observation and looking at some of her writing and just interviewing her and talking with her. So, building a lesson for Michelle, I took a couple different approaches. One was the classroom observation. As I was just listening, you could hear from time to time Michelle, she does forget her suffixes, she does forget her endings, her ings, when she's speaking. I think sometimes she's trying to speak too fast. When she slows down her speaking and gives a little more thought to it, she tends to do just fine. Uh, she has a good grasp of English with just a few spelling and speaking errors. Her writing, once again, her writing missed a lot of the endings, a lot of the suffixes, a lot of the verb progressive ing ending. Uh, so she makes the typical grammatical mistakes that in our book Paraguay and Boyle they say that it'll work out just fine. The more she speaks, the more she writes, the more engaged she is. These kind of things should work themselves out. Uh, in subject verb alignment, she still has some problems with that. But according to her teacher, and then from what I've seen and read, and just by getting to know, she looks like she's going to be just fine, especially that she's very engaged. So with that, I decided to just I went online and I went to it's ESL Games Plus and and then there was well, we'll start with that. ESL Games Plus, and they had crossword puzzles because I wanted to build her vocabulary and I wanted to work with verbs with her. So I printed out 3 verb-oriented crossword puzzles, and my my goal was to first model the first one, and there's always between 16 and 20 questions up and down, or yeah, cross and down. And I modeled the first one with her, and we had a partner also. And The first one, she understood exactly what we were going to do. The objectives were stated up front that we were going to work on verbs, we were going to work on, tense, and we're going to then wrap up the lesson with a fun Mad Lib that asks her to use adjectives, nouns, and verbs. But the first one was modeled by me. The second one, she knew that she was going to do with her partner, and they were going to share responsibilities. And I talked to her partner ahead of time. It was a student of mine, and I said, I want you to just kind of allow her to take the lead and just be there to help if she needs it. and I just wanted to see how she interacted with another student. And with the second one, it was fine. Michelle uh, did all the she did the across clues. She would write them in, and her partner would read the clues, and each clue was also followed or preceded by a picture of the verb. So I definitely wanted to do that. I wanted her to see the verb and then read the question and then see if she could fill it in. So the second one, she did very good. She was the leader of the group. She she read the across ones, then she would be the one writing the down answers in. And she very much, her and her partner got along just fine. They'd never met before, and they did a good job. And the third one I wanted to see her do individually, so she could just have some quiet time on her own and just put it together, see if she could see the clues, read the clues, and then fill in the blanks. And she did very well with those. Really, she had to think on maybe one or two. And I was there in case she needed help, and she really didn't. She moved right along with them. And then for the final part of it, after we went through the three crosswords, I had an ESL Mad Lib, and it was like any typical Mad Lib. It was really just a paragraph about a day at the zoo, and it asked Michelle to fill in adjectives, nouns, and verbs. And I was testing to see if she could recall any, sight words, build up her vocabulary. I kind of, my goal was to see if she would just go to her first answer, or would she actually sit and think about putting something in that could be funny or more funny than normal. And she understood exactly the meaning of a Mad Lib. She knew her nouns, she knew her verbs, she knew her adjectives, but she knew it was more than just like a regular school assignment. She knew it was supposed to be funny. So she actually thought about what she was putting in first, and then went from there. So I liked that she grasped the concept of a Mad Lib, and knew that it wasn't a regular school assignment. Knew that there was some humor to it, and she didn't use just initial, or recall initial sight words. She decided to put in, creative verbs, nouns, and adjectives to make the story funny. And then I had her read the Mad Lib aloud, and she did very well. She's moving right along. I didn't see any stumbling. Her tense was good. Her suffixes were fine, and she did very well on that last the last lesson there, or the last worksheet with Mad Lib. She really did like that too. So after the lesson, I just kind of sat back and went over it and noticed that she didn't really make any mistakes. I mean, she thought about a couple of the verb crosswords. She, the last crossword, I think probably helped her the most because it was the verb progressive crossword. So she really started learning just putting the ing at the end of her verbs, and and from there, I started to think it may have been a little too easy for her, but I knew she had problems with tenses and verb alignments. So I kind of wanted to go with there, and I just kind of wanted to build up a lesson for her, that started with seeing a picture of a verb and then putting it in the right place and then learning to put the right ending in it. So, and then how does she work well with a partner? And So I kind of want to hit a bunch of little topics with her, things that I knew she had problems with from conversations from her teacher and seeing her writing and listening to her talk. And overall, I think it went well. Maybe next time I would maybe find a harder crossword because she did seem to figure out the verbs very quickly, and maybe the pictures helped. Maybe that was the key to it. But it seemed like she got through it a lot quicker than she would have in her regular class. But it was one-on-one too, so maybe there was less distractions. But overall, it's her third year of English, and her teacher and I think she's going to be just fine. She knows what she needs to do to work on to speak English better, and she's always willing to work. She shows up every day. She's listening to her teachers, and she's a really good student. And it was a pleasure to work with her.